But the approach they took, rather than just a one-county approach, is in 2016. Into a six-county approach, not a one-county. That's what I'm going to be talking to.
There's definitely a difference between my attire when my wife is home and when my wife is not at home. I can't tie my shoes, you know. I got my thumb.
Is there anything I can do for the supervisor? Anything I can do?
Just don't do don't.
Anything I can do, good buddy?
That's what Jay Hansen did that the other day. Because I even had my sling on. He thought I hurt my wrist. Slapped right on my sutures.
Hey, you want to see this side or you want to see this side?
This is my third one.
Yeah, I've had both of them done. No, dislocation. You got the replacement.
I got a full replacement.
That's the first
I've
time.
had three dislocations. I had two on labor repair.
What was the reason for it?
Weightlifting college.
I'm going to stand here until it gets quiet, right?
Amazing. Well, you'll be better. 100%.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sacramento Regional Transit Board meeting. I shocked you all, huh?
Yes.
Tonight, we are absent a chair and a vice chair, so our procedures call for me to start the meeting. So that's what I'm doing. So bear with me if I screw anything up, please. What I'm going to do is now call the roll. Director Budge? Here. Director Hansen is marked as being absent. Director Harris?
Here.
Director Hume?
Here.
Director Jennings?
Here.
Director Miller? Here. Director Morin?
Here.
Director Natoli? Director Chenier?
Here.
Director Cerna?
Here.
Chair Kennedy is marked as being absent. This meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel. Tonight's meeting will air on Thursday, June 14th at 9 a.m. and replayed on Saturday, June 16th at 2 p.m. and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed caption. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker card located at the rear of the room and provide it to me or Adam. Please speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. We would appreciate everyone turning off their cell phones. With that, would you like to join me in the pledge, please? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So at this point, we do have a quorum, and our procedure calls for members of the board to elect a chair pro tem. So do I have a motion?
I would nominate Director Chenier to serve as Chair Pro Tem. Second.
I have a motion by Director Hume and a second by Director
Harris.
Hansen, Harris, all of you guys. For Director Chenier to become the Chair Pro Tem for tonight. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? At that point, I'll let Chair Pro Tem take the microphone.
Should we applaud now?
I know. That was stupendous. Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome. Jeff, do you need a pen?
Yeah, I do.
Thanks, Henry. Do we have the plaque for Cindy for her? All right, we're going to move to public, members of the public who want to address the board on matters not on the agenda. Let me find. Okay, we have about 6 folks. David Schwiegel. After David is Mike Birnbaum and Sarah Kerber.
Greetings, SAC-RT Board of Directors. David Schwegel, U.S. High-Speed Rail. Sacramento Light Rail is an integral part of what California High-Speed Rail Authority Board Chairman Dan Richard calls a statewide integrated network of mass transit and station area development. A hot topic at the upcoming High-Speed Rail Leadership Summit in the Silicon Valley this September. The light rail extension to Folsom got me to work during a 2-month period where my stress level was so high that doctors recommended I do not drive. That same extension out to Folsom got me to numerous transportation meetings here in Sacramento during my full-time volunteer high-speed rail advocacy days at a fraction of the cost of driving. I lived in Granite Bay at the time, which is within the top quintile for transportation spending, where the average Granite Bay household spends upwards of $15,000 per household per year, according to the color-coordinated exhibits by the Center for Neighborhood Technology. In the quest for a 10 to 20-fold increase in funding, leverage those CNT exhibits to show how transit saves households considerable money, explore bus rapid transit options to provide expedited access to more remote job centers, and note how putting Siemens to work building new light rail rolling stock for our system would be instrumental to our region's economic stimulation. Finally, in our quest for a 10 to 20-fold increase in funding, we'll want to take a look at King County up in Washington, the greater Seattle region. It went from a transportation system in dire need of repair, I quote former Boeing CEO Alan Mulally, to the nation's leader on the construction crane scoreboard, and light rail was the key for making that happen. The region is currently embarking on a light rail and commuter rail expansion that's in the neighborhood of $54 billion, which is almost as ambitious as our entire statewide high-speed rail project. So I encourage us to go after those funds judiciously and make the argument about how households who have access to quality transit save upwards of $10,000 per year or more over their households that do not have such access. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Mike?
Thank you, Chair Chenier. This evening, we want to address the board about transit finance and the future of transit finance. Last Tuesday, Proposition 69 was on the ballot, as was Regional Measure 3. We'll get to that in just a moment. First, Proposition 69 passed statewide, according to the Secretary of State's office with updated results today, of 80.8% yes and 19.2% no. Regional Measure 3. So as you know, back in 2016, Sacramento County on its own and Placer County on its own attempted to provide transportation measures on its general election ballot, getting about 64 to 65% of the vote respectively, but did not make the voter threshold under the requirements of those particular measures to pass. So last Tuesday was Regional Measure 3, and that was on the ballot in Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Napa, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Solano, and Sonoma counties. It needed only 50% plus one of the vote of the entire population of those counties to pass. As of an update today, it is at 55% voter approval. Full results will be available the first week of July. So we looked at this, we're like blown away. Regional Measure 3 was on the ballot and authorized by the legislature to help relieve congestion in the counties just mentioned by raising bridge tolls, not parcel use or sales taxes. And bridge tolls for all bridges except the Golden Gate Bridge, which has its own governing body, will go up $1 in 2019, 2022, and 2025. Sacramento will benefit by improved Capital Corridor service and additional allocated service hours on the Fast Express scheduled to start July 1st. But the big takeaway from this is the next attempt, perhaps, for raising transportation revenue here. You think the 6 counties should do something together rather than just a county going about it alone? Based on this, that's what we think. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Kerber with the Sacramento Transit Riders Union. Last week, Mayor Steinberg gave a speech on achieving inclusive economic growth in our region. He proposed to do this by increasing the half-cent Measure U tax to a full cent and providing those resources to a variety of issues that he highlighted as significant for our economic growth. SAC True members were disappointed that investing in public transportation was not mentioned once. The words public transportation were not mentioned once in that policy speech. Public transportation was not mentioned as a way to provide communities with access to jobs, to housing, and to other resources they need to succeed. It wasn't mentioned as an essential resource that should be funded, developed, and improved with the measure that Mayor Steinberg proposed. SACTRU is tired of our city's policy of transit last planning and transit last funding. We urge the members of the board, especially the members on the Sacramento City Council, to have these conversations with Mayor Steinberg and your constituents, to advocate for public transit in every act, speech, interview, and tax increase that we put on the ballot. Access to transit can help open new doors to success and connect residents to the essential resources and new housing that Mayor Steinberg is looking to bring to our region. Public transit should be a part of every upcoming discussion you have on the measure. SAC-RT staff is looking at a variety of plans to improve public transit, and they're actively securing grants to help start these projects, but we need support from our elected officials, and we need you to make sure that your constituents know that transportation is also an essential factor in addressing the issues that Steinberg talked about in his speech last week. Improving public transit should be a part of every solution that all of our cities work on and our counties. No more transit last planning and no more transit last funding. We can help keep people from being left behind by giving them a ride to where they need to go. Thank you.
Sarah? I just want to offer my congratulations for your graduation.
Thank you so much. Now I have more free time to come here.
Sarah she just hold on one second. She just graduated from McGeorge Law School and was also one of the commencement speakers. And I have no doubt that you're going to fulfill some of the objectives that you laid out when you spoke, which we'll talk about later. All right, Felix Huerta. Jane McCauley, Flor Gressel.
Chair Chenier, my name is Felix Huerta. I'm the organizer for Operating Engineers Local Union Number 3. 2 weeks ago, I addressed your board to indicate that we had filed a petition. We did get a response from the state of California, which I'm providing to you today. The state has ruled that, number one, they will retain jurisdiction of the petition that we filed, which is one of the things that we said would take place. The second thing that they will rule on is whether or not we've submitted sufficient petitions for certification, and they will see that process through the State Mediation and Conciliation Services response. One of the things that I noticed in the letter was that you now have a new attorney assigned to this case Again, it's new to me. I had never seen this gentleman's name before. So I will be making a request for public information to find out how much Regional Transit is spending on outside legal services to challenge the legitimate petition that we have, the legitimate petition that a majority of the employees in this unit that I petitioned for have submitted. How much have you spent to incorporate this now new attorney into this case? So I'm very disappointed that the leadership is not willing to let the management, the professional and the confidential employees unionize, but public employees have the right to unionize in California without fear of reprisal. I had a union meeting last month. A number of employees attended. One employee verified for me what I had heard, which was the labor relations system in RT is conducting one-on-one individual 30-minute interrogation meetings. I'm very disappointed. Once I get a declaration from that employee, you can believe that we're going to follow through with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jane?
Hi, my name is Jane McCauley. I'm here to ask about the Evergreen surplus property sale. I did hear from David Flagg from the PBID that the city would not be moving forward with their bid to purchase. We also heard from Alan Warren that Evergreen, the sale to the city, would not be moving forward. The thing is, the neighbors have been told that Evergreen is on again, and then off again, and then on again, and then off again. At a meeting with the city homeless director on a Wednesday recently, we were told that it was off again. On Thursday, the next day, we were told the city had in fact submitted a bid. D2 neighbors and businesses are anxious to hear a definitive response from someone. A homeless shelter at the entrance to our business quarter and neighborhood, plus a few blocks from a daycare and elementary school, is not the best use for this property. Is the Evergreen sale to the city for a shelter off the table, postponed, or what is happening with it? Lastly, the property at Lumberjack that was sold to CSW is in dire need of cleanup. I'm not sure if that sale has been finalized and whose responsibility that is, but there are homeless campers on the side of the property, broken windows, grasses, garbage everywhere. So it's just causing blight at the entry to our business quarter. Thank you.
Thank you. Floor? And then Art Ketterling, be our last speaker. After.
Hello, my name is Flor Grissel, and I guess since we didn't get an answer, I'll continue talking about Evergreen. I have a petition signed by over 300 members of the community from Woodlake Elementary School, bus drivers, staff members, teachers, parents who are concerned about Evergreen. And I'll just read, there's the thing, my 3 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm used to City Hall where it's up there. And I was saying, how do you know when your time's up? Okay, I'll stop talking. So the petition is to stop the Sacramento Regional Transit District from selling its surplus property at 2051 Evergreen Street. And the undersigned are against the sale of Regional Transit surplus property known as Evergreen next to Arden Way Light Rail Station to the City of Sacramento for placing, constructing, or siting an emergency triage shelter. State law requires RT surplus land to be used for affordable housing, and pursuant to RT sent out a notice of intent to sell surplus property that required public agency offers to commit to use the property for development of affordable housing. A homeless triage shelter is not affordable housing, and we urge the Sacramento Regional Transit Board to reject the city's offer as non-compliant with the state law and its own 10/25/2018 notice of intent to sell the property, and I can leave these copies with you. As a person who lives in the area, I own a home 1.5 blocks away from the proposed permanent shelter on Evergreen Street, and I'm also a retired teacher who works frequently at Woodlake Elementary School, which is less than a mile from the proposed shelter. Children walk to and from the school on Royal Oaks Drive, which crosses Evergreen to get to their school, which is less than a mile from the shelter. The city never discussed the shelter with the school, businesses, or neighborhoods that would be affected. Within 30 minutes, I received 16 signatures from teachers, staff, parents, and bus drivers who said it was way too close to the school. I'm sure if I'd been there longer, I would have received more signatures. None of those I spoke with agreed with the city's decision. There's also a preschool across the street on Arden Way, and parents who have children there told me they were upset about the prospects of a homeless shelter across the street. They were already angry that there's a recycling center next door. According to RT CEO Henry Lee, his goal is to increase ridership, make money for RT, and run the best optimal service. A better use of the lot would be housing or housing and retail, and I feel it is in the best interest of RT to go with the highest bidder, willing to develop housing on that site, not a permanent homeless shelter. Affordable housing on that site is ideal. A transit stop is adjacent to the proposed site. This would increase ridership, make a larger profit for RT than if the city purchased it. And because that stretch of Arden is the gateway to the freeway, Arden Fair, Del Paso Boulevard, Arden Way Special Planning Zone, it would be better suited for affordable housing and retail. So the city's not taken into consideration the effects that this proposed shelter will have on businesses, children, residents, and RT ridership. They're looking for a quick fix instead, and there are other places where the city could place a permanent homeless shelter, but a shelter on Evergreen, I think, is a very bad idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Art?
Arthur Ketterling from Citrus Heights. I first of all want to mention that there is a bus stop. I don't know exactly what part of the street it is, but it's one stop prior to Uplands Way in Citrus Heights that there is no bus sign at all. It has, I seen it the other day that was just hanging, and now I don't see no bus sign at all. And number two, I was wanting to find out if the schedule for going to Folsom will be out on the buses this weekend, because I checked as I come in, and I know it's a little early yet, but it is this Sunday that it goes into effect for the Folsom line to expand hours. And also with Smart Ride, or is that still planned for maybe the end of July?
Okay, thanks, Art. We'll see if we can get you some answers. All right, that is it for matters not on the agenda.
Correct. So the next item is the consent calendar, items 1 through 13, noting that you have speakers on 5, 8, and 10.
All right, let's go ahead with the speakers, and then we'll take the consent calendar as a whole. Is there anything else we need to pull off?
I would like to pull item 10.
All right, anything else?
I'd like to comment on item 9 when we get there, so.
You want to comment on it, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'm going to comment on it before we take a motion, or when we take a motion.
Okay, so we'll take item 10 off and do public comment on that one separately. Crystal McGee Lee. This is on item 5.
Item 5, approving the first and second amendments to the personal service contracts for the Security Operations Center.
Good evening. My name is Crystal McGee Lee. I'm Vice President of ATU Local 256. My President Niz sends his regards. We're right now currently finishing up a contract for the Elk Grove Unified School District, so he wasn't here to approach you himself. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Chair Chenier. I'm also not only the Vice President, but I'm also an employee here. I'm a bus driver here at RT. May 10th, 2018, General Manager Lee sent out a memo citing RT's fiscal outlook. In it, it states that RT is currently working through a $1.5 million operational budget shortfall for fiscal year 19. And in fiscal year 20, RT faces additional challenges in outstanding debt service payment of $3.5 million annually, and that will become due. Furthermore, RT has a $3 million they're owing as well. So our issue is, ATU Local 256 issue is, we're getting on item number 5, I believe. We'll spend approximately $516,000 on special events and crime series. So my question to you, like when I read this, was what was a crime series? Are we talking Law and Order? or, I had never seen that on an agenda before, or, in regards to money, $500,000 to $516,000 spent on a crime series. The union's position is if RT is still having challenges and still clawing its way out of financial difficulty, this board has to make very sound fiscal decisions. And I'm just hearing the gentleman right here saying that that RT is currently paying for an outside legal department, legal lawyer, when we have a legal department here. So that's kind of disconcerting, so I'm gonna have to report that back as well. The union has diligently worked with regional transit. We have the TAs that we came to you guys and we talked about. Henry Lee and Mr. Lonigan have worked diligently with the ATU. We've helped with our FMLA issues, avoiding a lawsuit in regard to some of the human resources mishaps in regards to the FMLA. And now we've just finished doing the attendance program and revamping that so that RT can continue and bus drivers are at work, and we can show the public that the drivers are working as hard as they can and coming to work. So those to me as vice president are achievements. But in closing, I really need to let you know that we have negotiations coming up in December with the RT. And for a long time now, we have had disconcerting, very difficult relations with with labor relations. And with the ongoing adversarial attitude that we have with the labor relations board, or not board, should I say, upstairs, going into the negotiations with RT are going to be very tedious, very difficult, and at this moment, extremely bleak. And especially if Sacramento is, at this point in time, RT is saying that they don't have a lot of money. So in closing, I want to thank you for your time and your patience and my stumbling around, but I had a couple things going through my head and this bell is ringing. So thank you very much. You have a good evening.
Okay. Henry, do you want to address an explanation of what that is?
I think we're going to have a meeting with the ATO leadership to.
No, I think that's great, and I want to commend ATO. You guys have been great over the last number of years in really helping as we've moved the organization forward, so I do want to note that. But I think you had one question about item 5 and what this contract is for. I don't know if that's Mr. Lonigan.
Actually, Lisa, our police chief is here. She can actually answer that question.
So if you can give a brief explanation, that would be great.
Sure. Good evening, Chair Chenier and members of the board. Thank you for that question. I thought that was a great question. So the Security Operations Center is staffed 24/7. And to answer the question, their sole focus is to make the system as safe as possible. They handle the Alert Sac RT app, and so they immediately dispatch transit agents, security guards, police officers to be able to respond to our ridership and make sure that they get immediate response at any kind of safety concerns. So crime series is just one minute part of their, specifically to answer your question. If there is a crime series, they can focus the cameras on that particular situation and address that accordingly. But they're invaluable, in my opinion, to RT and to the safety of the ridership, watching the videos and providing the customer service.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Mr. Tardigia, do you want to address item 8?
I'm in on 8.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
So item number 8, resolution authorizing the solicitation of bids for elevator maintenance and repair services.
Well, again, Jeff Tardigia, and since I don't see Steve Anson, and Patrick, you have certainly changed. But in the 3 minutes through here, item 8.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you need to report what the maintenance is going to be in the contract? Okay.
I'm sorry?
It sounded like you were wanting her to read the contract, or what are you going to?
No, I wanted
Anyway,
to.
all right, well, because I was not here for public comment, I am concerned that RT, apparently we had for an hour and a half, a blind person in the elevator stuck. It would seem to me like we are having a problem where you should have somebody checking that elevator when it's non-functioning, and annually, hourly checking to be sure when it doesn't function, so that things are going. I don't believe a maintenance contract is going to assist you in that issue, but you need to do something better for either Braille and for making sure that when somebody gets stuck in here, this is planning and procedure needs to happen so that you do not have these recurring issues come up. I have repeatedly said that you need to tell the operators so that they know when the, shall we say, elevator is down, so that riders on will know on the 15, on 19 and others, so they can make changes in their plans if the elevator is down. And I'm hoping that sometime very soon an action will be taken for that east elevator so that you can accommodate getting people out by the street through there so they can walk if the elevator is out. But again, there's been no plan, no procedure, nothing in effect has changed. And this is something, Board of Directors, you need to figure out how you direct Henry Lee about better managing that situation until it is corrected. Because that elevator has been out. The same thing, the lift on the Capitol has been out repeatedly. No signage has gone up. And again, when you do put signage up, you put it at one point, you don't put it at all points, and you do not alert either the light rail operators or seeing that the service, should we say.
So, Jeffrey, do you have an opinion one way or another about whether we should go
The
out,
opinion
go out
is
for
it's
bid?
not solving the problem. So, you're putting a maintenance
Should we
contract
go out for bids
before.
or not? That's what the
I mean, it's not adequate.
Okay, thank you.
That's my opinion.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, and just as a part of what Jeff just pointed out, would it be possible for the board to get a summary of the incident report if, in fact, what Jeffrey cited, that somebody was stuck in the elevator for an hour and a half? It's my understanding that elevators for a long time are required on the touch controls braille behind that, and also an emergency alarm button. So, again, without getting into it this evening, I, for one, would like to know if, in fact, that's exactly what occurred, and if so, under what circumstances the person was in there for the length of time. And, again, this doesn't go to whether elevator runs as much as it does or doesn't, but it does if they get stranded in there as to how they call attention to that.
How did they get out again?
Yeah, how did they get out again? So,
Okay,
anyway, yeah.
great.
Well, okay, thanks.
All right, given that, we have items 1 through 13 minus item 10 on the consent calendar.
I believe
Motion.
Director Natoli had a comment on 9.
Oh, I'm sorry, Don. Go ahead.
9 or 10?
Nine.
Oh.
Give me a second. Go ahead, second, though.
Okay, so I'll second that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just if I could, just on item 9, just wanted to say that I know that staff has done some research on this. We're going to be meeting further with county staff relative to right-of-way that's adjacent east of it, as I spoke to at the last meeting of our board of directors, and determine who has responsibility. I think, if nothing else, RT has assisted in the past with removing some of the weeds and such, but at any rate, I'm prepared to support this evening's recommended action, but I just wanted to acknowledge that there has been some work done, but I don't think we've had a final answer yet on who has maintenance responsibilities for the area that's adjacent. Thanks.
Okay, great. So we have a motion by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Budge. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the motion carries unanimously. Can you read item 10 now?
Item number 10, resolution amending and restating Title 12 of the Sacramento Regional Transit District Administrative Code pertaining to rules for use of light rail and bus vehicles and facilities, and Janice Labrato is here to answer any questions.
Okay, why don't we do the public comment first if we can, and then we'll go to yours. So, Ms. Floor?
Hello, I'm Pam Floor. I'm the chair of the Mobility Advisory Council, and just by way of background, I wanted to let you know about the makeup of the ad hoc committee. I appointed Jeff Tom, who could not be here tonight, and Patty Johnson because they have everyday live experience with service animals. I also wanted the relevant people from the staff, and fortunately we had two excellent members of Federation for the Blind of California and the Golden State Guide Dog Handlers. And I expected it to be a lengthy, drawn-out process because it's a very complex issue, lots of emotion, litigation, etc., and I was pleasantly surprised. And since Jeff is a lawyer and has a good way with words, I'm going to quote him. The task force has taken a very unified, common sense approach aimed at educating riders about what is and isn't a service animal and the requirements that pertain to both service and non-service animals. So, if you have any further questions, Janice or I.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Budge?
That absolutely speaks to my question. Because so often when we write ordinances, we need to be sure that we're clear about what the desired result is. And in the list of definitions, there's no definition of service animal. There's a poster that describes it. Actually, there's a couple of draft posters in there that describe it that are supposedly going to be on the bus or in the operator's manual or something like that. But doesn't it seem logical that it would be included in the definitions? And so I was going to ask, do we enlist the MAC to come up with a definition that could go into the draft ordinance?
Okay. So we're getting a positive response on that?
Yeah.
That's great.
The definition of service animal is a legal one, and we've actually put a lot of more information on our website really to educate the public about what the difference is between service animals and other pets or even emotional support and therapy animals, which a service animal is trained to assist a person with a disability with a specific task or tasks. And emotional support animals are not trained, but they comfort us by just their passive nature. And a lot of people really didn't understand that. So back even before our first ad hoc meeting met, we actually started revising some of our web information to really get it out there. We put an article in our Next Stop News because a lot of people just don't understand that. So we're on the signage, we're trying to keep it kind of brief because we don't have a lot of real estate.
Sure. No, and I appreciate that. It just struck me that since it happens to be the subject of the ordinance, it might be a good idea to include it in the definitions. But that's up to you all. If everybody on all sides is happy that it's out there, that's fine. Sometimes duplication is a good thing.
Okay. All right. So any other questions on this item? Is there a motion then?
Move item 10.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Could I have the maker of the motion in a second? I didn't hear it over here. Andy, Director Moran and
Mr.
Director
Moore and
Jennings.
Mr. Jennings.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, just a point of order if I could. I know that we had some speakers on the non-agenda items relative to the status of the Evergreen site. Is that something that I think people are still maybe waiting at least some sort of answer? I don't know if it's appropriate either through the general manager or otherwise, at least to tell where we are so that folks at least have some understanding this evening where the district is. If
You want to cover that in your general manager's report, Henry?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So why don't we move to the general manager's
Okay,
report?
thanks.
And you need to read that item?
Sure. Item number 14, General Manager's Report.
Perfect.
Thank
Henry?
you.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Chair Pro Tem Chenier, members of the board, and the public. Answer the question Director Attorney just asked it. We do not have any valid offer so far except city's offer on the table. And staff has not made any decision to bring that to board. So we're kind of like in the holding pattern. Secondly, I'd like to share that Los Latomas Transportation Management Association, TMA, has signed a new 5 years contract with SACRT to provide a transportation service with 8 new vehicles. The service will soon include a new express route to downtown Sacramento. In addition, the TMA will be unveiling a new service along with new branding. We're proud to be a long-time partner of the TMA and look forward to working with them in the next 5 years and many more years to come. Tonight, TMA Executive Director, Ms. Becky Hayek, is here. Thank you, Becky, for your strong leadership, vision, and partnership. Really appreciate it. I would also like to extend the invitation to all of you, board members and the public, to join us this Thursday evening at 5 p.m. in historical Folsom Light Rail Station to celebrate the extension of Gold Line service. This is more than 15 years or 20 years in the making. And after years of talk and hard work by many partners, especially under the leadership of our board member, Andy Morin, we are finally extending late evening service on the Gold Line past Sunrise Station to the city of Folsom from 6:30 or close to 7 p.m. to close to midnight. And this is great news for all of us. That concludes my report, and I would love to answer any questions you may have.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So can we just confirm that there is an active bid from the city of Sacramento for the Evergreen property?
Yes, I think we have that active offer on that, yeah.
And it's still an active bid?
Let me confirm with Brent. Last time.
That's a good question. We have a letter of interest from the city of Sacramento. We also have an email right now that's asked us to hold off on pursuing that further. That's why we haven't brought it to your attention.
Clear as mud.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is that the end of the general manager's report? Totally? Okay. I have some public comment on that. Mr. Tartagia and then Mr. Barnbaum.
Jeff Tartagia, to the board. Indeed, I still trying to find out when you are going to get the further explanations from the general manager about the actions. This is one as an example of the property, and so far you do not have an effective tool for when the general manager things have been completed. And so here we are, once a month on an agenda to find out what is going on. This offers very little time and very poor to find out whether it is proceeding or not. Right now, you've said it's not at the moment, it's on hold, and yet what will happen next month? It seems to me that you should be able to do a better job as a board of directors in explaining or getting a better comprehensive picture about what manner of procedures these things that are recurring. And with you guys doing it only once a month, it leaves it very poor manner to which to inform the public. That's my comment about that. The other thing I will offer is dealing with light rail operations. We've had a number of problems with the electronic bulletin boards. When I last was on it, it said that Gold Line was 15 minutes behind. Now, when it's already on a 15-minute schedule, it's puzzling what that information is really providing. But I can tell you Broadway, and I can tell you the Archive Plaza has been for weeks without an electronic bulletin board effectively being used. I've seen that there's work orders going on about problems with the electronic bulletin board system. I'm hoping that somewhere of these things are going to be better explained, and like other problems occurring with the signaling and with the Connect card at various locations where they are not working, it seems like when we get down there, we're going to have some indication, perhaps, of where our loss of revenue is occurring with our Connect cards, because I can tell you repeatedly on weekends, the Sac Valley station, we will have where the Connect card does not work, and so you have weekends where people are coming in and they don't know that there's one at the other end to use because it is so far away from where you're trying to get on the light rail. You both supposedly are supposed to have a plan for Sac Valley Station. I don't know when that is going to be explained to the public.
Thank you. Mr. Birnbaum?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pro Tem, and thank you, Chief Henry Lee, for the excellent report. I wanted to piggyback on the report and mention some meetings, events, and notices to take advantage of the new service hours into historic Folsom. Most of these events are at Golden One Center, but a couple here and there are in other locations. On the 21st of this month at 4 p.m. at Golden One Center is the King's Draft Party. Show your Sacramento proud in purple and hear what Adam Silver will call as the number 2 and number 32 pick in the NBA draft. On the 29th of June at 7:30 is Steve Martin and Martin Short at Golden One Center. On Monday, July 2nd, Tuesday, July 3rd, and Thursday, July 5th is the NBA Summer Classic featuring the Kings, Warriors, Lakers, and Heat. On the 9th of July, Monday, Harry Styles live on tour at 8 p.m. And on July 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Is Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. Back in June for a moment, on the 26th of June at 6:30 p.m. is the first Folsom City Council meeting since the new service is going to take effect. If you've seen Folsom's website, you'll notice that no agenda item will be heard after 10:30 p.m. Anything coming up to that time would be carried over to the next council meeting. That's an excellent opportunity to attend Folsom Council meetings with the new hours, as the last train back into Sacramento would leave historic Folsom at 11:30 p.m. on a weeknight. And last but not least, Chris, don your green and gold, as the Oakland A's will have Sunday games at 1:05 p.m. on July 1st, a Saturday June 30th game at 1:05 against the Cleveland Indians, as well as 1:05 games July 15th and July 22nd in the Bay Bridge series against the San Francisco Giants.
Go Giants.
In those games, remember at 1:05, Megabus and Capitol Corridor are great options depending on which ballpark the game is played at. And both connect to the Gold Line, getting people even as far back to Folsom. So enjoy the new service hours to Folsom, and we'll see you Thursday.
Thank you, Mike.
I just want to jump in and extend my appreciation for you trying to pump up our council attendance. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. It's it's a pleasure. Looking forward to the new service hours for folks in Folsom and Sacramento. Thank you for the comment.
Thanks, Mike. All right, let's move to item 15. I'm sorry.
Chair, I just wanted to briefly going through a couple other items and the GM report, because I noticed it's on the report, but I didn't talk about. Just 1 minute, I'm going to go through 3 items.
I don't know, it might be too late.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The first,
No, he doesn't get 10 minutes. Go ahead.
just 1 minute. Recently, our employees, sent request and asked to bring the employee appreciation events back, which end in 2014. And they really like it, and we start on that last Friday. There were about 200 employees and family members attend the event. It's great. And we said, happy employees, and happy customers, and happy family. So that's one update. Second update is we finally finished Rancho Cordova instrument houses painting with the painting picture. And thanks to Director Budge for helping us to get this project done. This has been a long time in the making, and we finally get this done. And we're going to continue some this type of great work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The third one is last week, City of Sacramento Council approved the light rail system operation and maintenance new agreement. This is 30 years in the making. Finally, we made this done, and we're going to save lots of money. And we lost millions of the money in the past because the original agreement was not equitable agreement. That is, the agreement 33 years ago. It was made because at that time the situation was totally different. But after last couple years, very hard work by the staffs both sides, and especially thanks to Mayor Stenberg and the entire city council members for you guys' leadership, and we've finally get this done. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Mr. Harris.
Henry, you forgot to mention that at least one board member was there at the employee appreciation event.
Yes, and Director Harris attended the board that appreciation event. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Henry. And it is a remarkable agreement. It's taken a long time to get there, but benefits really the community, which is what it should. All right, let's move to item 15.
Item number 15 is the continuation of the public hearing on the fiscal year 2019 operating and capital budgets. And before you, we're asking you to finish accepting public comment. We have a resolution approving the Sacramento Regional Transit Budget 19 operating, debt service, and capital budgets and vote allocation, and a resolution authorizing the filing of the fiscal year 19 Transportation Development Act claim based on the adopted budget, and also a resolution amending Exhibit A of Resolution 1711-0150 and approving the district's authorized classifications, positions, and salary grades, and amending Exhibit B of Resolution 1701-0013 and approving new salary grade values. And here to present is Brent Berdicker and David Goldman.
Is that all in one breath?
No, that was several.
So, good evening, Chair Chenier and members of the board. So we've completed the FY 2019 operating and capital budget. And before I go into this budget, and I'm just going to go over the highlights, obviously. I know we have some time constraints, but I want to talk about some of the 4 fiscal challenges that we've encountered through this budget process. The first one is the SB1 funds. I think all of you are familiar with that. There's a potential repeal in November of this year for those funds. So what we did is to be prudent. We elected to not budget any of that SB1 funding in the operating budget. So it's all moved over to the capital. Doing so created a hole because in 2018 we had budgeted $3 million. Now we have no money budgeted in 19. So what we had to do is look at this from a creative standpoint. How do we kind of solve the solution or this issue? And the first thing we did is we looked at our Measure A, which is our sales tax money. And if you've all been aware, the sales tax that's been coming in has been coming in a lot better than projected. So that helped from a revenue standpoint. But from an expense standpoint, we're also looking at some flexibility options with business optimization and organizational change that's under the GM's authority. So that was looked at. The next challenge we have is the future debt service payment. You all recall in 2012 we did the bond issuance. That debt service payment was delayed for 3 years. We were able to use some TCRP money to delay that payment, and now it's coming due in fiscal year 2020. In fiscal year 20. That's about $3.5 million annually. That's something we've been kind of worried about, that looming debt service payment. The next one we have is the claims. As you're aware, we've had a lot of claims, not a lot, but 2 to 3 claims that came in a lot higher than what was originally anticipated. And so what happens with those claim payments is our actuary will look at our experience study and determine if we need to actually raise the insurance, or actually, well, we'll determine if we have to raise insurance, or they'll have to determine if we have to raise our estimates on claims. So that's something we're also considering. The last thing we look at is we have a low operating reserve. This is a challenge that we've been facing. It's very small compared to industry standards, and we also have this line of credit. So with that kind of talks about the fiscal challenges. The next slide is just our operating budget. It's $169 million approximately. The good news here is that if you look at the base budget, without looking at any service increases in 19, it only increased by 2.6%, which is well within the CPI. When you look at adding in the additional services that we're going to put in fiscal year 19, which is then the microtransit and the half-hour Gold Line service that's been discussed, that increases the budget by about 4.7%. The next slide we have is the capital budget. It's about $528 million, and there is a lot of projects out there. I'm not going to cover them all. $96 million of that dollars was discussed in the April meeting, and there's a lot of these projects that we've brought forward. Something new that came about was the $89 million of competitive grant revenue that was recently awarded. That was a big win for us, and that's something we should all be very proud of. And then we also have $341 million of carryover funds. So the next slide, what we do is we present this to the public and everyone that wants to listen to us, but this basically breaks down our operating revenues, and I'm just going to focus on one thing. The largest operating revenues we have is our state assistance. This is our TDA money, and it makes up about $52 million, 31% of our budget. The next slide here is our operating expenses, and you can see that 89% of our costs go to service delivery and only 11% go to support services, which means the majority of funds are spent on operations.
Brent, can you go back and explain the support service number? What is 18.5 comma?
Sure. These would be the general administrative. You'd have your finance departments, your legal department.
No, I'm just asking the literal figure. Is that 18.5 million?
Yes. Sorry, 18.5 million, yes.
Okay, so then on the next slide then.
Yep.
That is just the support services broken down further.
This is actually the delivery. This is actually this is the 150 million broken down further.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is just when our operational expenses, we broke it down into how much is going to bus operations, how much is going to rail, paratransit, and public safety. This is something that a lot of people ask for, so we wanted to bring that for the board to look at. And let's see, I think that was it. And then after this, the slide is just kind of summarizing the steps that we've taken. I think what we're really focusing on here is that we've done the public outreach that's required, but we've also gone out and done other public outreach with the public, where we've gone to Arden Fair Mall, we've gone to the Sac True, and we've sat down and we've gone through some of the details that they really are interested in and explained some of the fundamental cost drivers. And at this point, we're now just looking for the board approval on the FY19 operating and capital budgets. But before I do that, are there any questions?
Well, we have a couple members of the public who wish to speak, so why don't we do that, and then we'll come back to the board. Mr. Barnbaum, Mr. Tardigia.
Yes, thank you. First of all, really pleased to see in the slide presentations, and some are available for the public in the back of the room if anyone still needs to get a hard copy, that there's an increase of 4.7% with service expansions. We did not anticipate that back in the initial hearing back in April, but after speaking with the budget team, there's been a lot happening from April till now, especially with CalSTA and the TIRCP awards. The lawsuit settled out of court that Caltrans will not only pay and cover the highway portion improvements to US 50, but will also pay for the additional service hours to Folsom starting this coming Sunday and Monday. Really excited about that. We know that RT is involved, as we're involved with you on the SAC RT Forward project, a way to help reimagine the network with the changing travel patterns and things. And we know and don't expect this board to approve a budget that will have wholesale service changes. Much like a lot of folks in the restaurant industry have to change their budget when they have wholesale menu changes. We don't think that that's right to do for this budget, but at least we would like to see some funds invested, maybe to sweeten the headways on existing routes in this budget prior to any wholesale changes being made. Some very popular routes, and this are just going off the top of my own head, maybe make the 30 every 10 minutes, the 51 every 10 minutes, make Sunday service on Route 23 every half hour, the 80 every half hour, the 84 every half hour, the 61 every half hour, and add Sunday service on the 84 without any changes to the alignments in service until the conclusion of the SAC-RT forward and the report we hear back from Jarrett Walker and Associates, then in future budgets, we think at that point it would be time to invest funds to wholesale changes, and even going back to the public comment early on in the meeting, what we could do not just as a county but as an entire region addressing transit finance, especially when a district is only getting 1/6 of 1 cent through Measure A. That's not enough. That needs to be more. And so that's why we think the region should be involved, not just one county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Tartagia?
Yes. Jeff Tartagia. And as Patrick aptly has demonstrated for the public, reason of bringing up this is what asked twice now is put not only the percentage, but the total numbers.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry. Cindy, could you start the clock, please? Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, shucks. You mean you don't want to hear me for more, Patrick, than 2 minutes? Anyway.
I'm not Patrick.
I know, but you're at Patrick's seat as chair. Anyway, as you can see on this one right here, there is not a total. The other thing that is not broken down is you have a whole bunch of things that you've increased budget items of more than 100%. If Steve Henson was here, he directed to Paratransit that it would be great that there would be a synopsis and a sort of annotated total of demonstrating the changes that are going on in the budget. And those things are not there available to see what's changing and what is one time and what is additional, shall we say, of ongoing efforts. You will see like there is a freight in that is 150%, I believe, increase on there. Why? Fortunately, Mark Lonigan was at the SAC True meeting, so we could find out that you guys picked up a whole bunch of old parts for dealing with the light rail. But there's other items that have been increased on there that are more than 100%. And so the question mark, is it every year or is this a one-time item? But like this, it would be great if the charts had both the numbers and the relevance to them. As you can see, this is service. But when you went back to the previous one, likewise, you have percentages, but you do not have on the sheets the total numbers. And sometimes people don't necessarily get the math of when you move from one chart to another to see where they correspondingly relate. And that's where something we asked both the first time that this came up and we asked at SAC True. And again, sometime in the future, hopefully a better budgeting process. I think every time you've talked with the public, you've learned more information and more what the public is interested. Not that everybody understands all the documentation, but something is very relevant when something increases and suggests, is there something that's going on that suggests much more information than just simply the numbers. All you get to see here is percentages. Sometimes you get numbers that go with them to make a demonstration up. You're going to have another item that dealt with the student fare. You had 6 million, you have 1 million, and the question mark in here is you have on this thing where you lost $1 million in fare revenue. Was that because of the Connect card not working? Was that because of the direction of where you had previously $60 and now you're collecting $20 for your student fare? You're in the middle of these things. So hopefully a student or a pilot program report will come back, just like doing the microtransit, is what's the relevance of 10, 20 people, 100 people being moved to how much is that costing dollar-wise and what revenue it's generating.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
If I just could, I would note that the pie charts are a very condensed, very condensed example of what the budget pie. The full budget document may not answer all the questions that Jeff or others might have, but that is available online, and there's a lot of good detail behind that talks about everything, what it costs for the price of a tire and gas to implement certain services. And I guess I would just say that hopefully that document's understandable if it's not, but that is a document that is readily available. That's why we have a length of time, and I know you know this, Jeff, and others as well, but from April through July before we do, or late June before we do budget adoption. So I guess I would just guide folks to that document if they weren't aware that we had that, because it's a pretty good source of information regarding a whole lot of information beyond just budget. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Rawlings, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. My name is Russell Rawlings. I'm the Director of Advocacy Services at Resources for Independent Living. I'm a board member of Organized Sacramento and a member of SacTrue and a rider of the 51 and light rail very heavily to and from work. And I want to thank the staff for a wonderful presentation on the budget. I think we get better and better every time we do this. So I really want to thank you all for having a presentation at SacTrue. I do know that budgets are complicated and getting this information to the public is difficult. So we appreciate the effort that's made and look forward to working with you all in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. You got that recorded, right? Just want to make sure. All right. Comments by the board. Can we do all these at once, or do we need separate? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move to close the public hearing and accept the budget.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Harris, a second by Ms. Budge. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Great job. Thank you, Brent. Appreciate all the work. And we appreciate all the times you've gone out to the public to help explain what we're trying to do here. Let's move to item 16.
Item number 16, information, update on various governance documents relating to the Riverfront Streetcar Project, presented by Mark Lonergan.
Mr. Lonergan.
Good evening, members of the board. So this item is an informational discussion of the proposed governance documents for the Riverfront Streetcar Project. This is the SAC-RT's first review of these documents, which will be brought back to a future board meeting for action. This is a unique project for in SAC-RT's history because it is owned and managed by the cities of Sacramento and West Sacramento through a joint powers authority. SAC-RT does not have a direct role in the ownership or governance of the system, but SAC-RT will be the grant recipient, will provide technical support for the project, and will be the initial operator of the system when complete. The parties involved have recognized that this approach to governance presents risk to SAC-RT and have drafted the agreements with language intended to minimize that risk while preserving the locally preferred governance structure. There are 4 agreements that were developed to implement the governance structure, 3 of which will require approval of the SAC-RT board at a future date. The specifics of each agreement are described in the issue paper, and a copy of each draft agreement is attached for the board's review. The joint exercise of powers agreement as amended establishes the JPA and does not require the approval of the SAC-RT board. SAC-RT is indirect representation on the JPA board, namely the JPA board must include one of the City of Sacramento appointees that is also a SAC-RT board member. Votes that significantly impact SAC-RT require an affirmative vote by the SAC-RT board member. The subrecipient agreement establishes the terms and conditions applicable to SAC-RT's transfer of grant funding to the JPA. As the grant recipient, the FTA will hold SAC-RT accountable for complying with all federal regulations for the design, construction, and operational life of this project. Since SAC-RT does not have a direct role in the governance of the system, the agreements are designed to provide SAC-RT the ability to ensure that the JPA and cities comply with FTA regulations. If there is an unresolved dispute, the final remedy would be through litigation to enforce the agreement. Under the design, procurement, and construction agreement, SAC-RT will manage the design and construction of the project along with the procurement of the streetcar vehicles. Under the operations and maintenance agreement, SAC-RT will maintain and operate the streetcar system. The parties have deferred the particulars of the operation and maintenance along with the budget methodology to be used for SAC-RT's costs to a later date, but the basic agreement is included in your package. SAC-RT will maintain a grant compliance role regardless of whether or not we remain the operator and maintainer of the system throughout its life. A critical next step for the project is the FTA risk assessment, currently scheduled for June 20th and 21st. The risk assessment is a process common to all major FTA projects that reviews a project scope, schedule, and budget and identifies project risks that could affect the successful completion of the project. Identified risks often impact the schedule and budget, adding both time and cost to the project. The identified risks from the risk assessment will need to be addressed before the FTA will enter into a small starts grant agreement. We actually anticipate some feedback at the end of the risk assessment, but the formal response is 4 to 6 weeks after the assessment's completed. This item will be back to you for approval of the subrecipient and interagency agreement, design, procurement, and construction agreement, and operations and maintenance agreement at a future board meeting. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. So, Mr. Harris, you want to start us off?
So, Mark, the risk assessment is pretty important to this project moving forward. And the comments that the FTA offer to us could potentially shape changes in the agreement, and how the JPA operates. So at the last board meeting, we adopted the current form of the JPA to move forward, and there is the potential to adopt that format at the two cities, correct?
Correct.
So this board will not hear about the risk assessment, or they won't hear about adopting these agreements until after the risk assessment is performed, but perhaps before the comments are received from the FTA?
So the next opportunity for the board to act is on the 23rd of July. That's your next scheduled meeting.
Right.
We will, of course, have completed the risk assessment. We will likely have some feedback from the FTA. We may or may not have the final report on the risk assessment by the time that you meet on the 23rd. Of course, the next meeting after that's the first meeting in August, and I would expect by then we should have the results of the risk assessment for you to consider as you look at adopting these agreements.
Right. So it's been a very interesting path to be on the JPA, and it's been a little tenuous because we really haven't gotten a lot of feedback on the small starts agreement. And of course, the project has changed over its course from a smaller project to a larger project, and we're putting in for a larger chunk of money from the FTA as well. But at the last board meeting, I think we were fairly unified. It wasn't a unanimous vote, but we voted to move forward. And I think it's important that we show a unified front to the FTA because we're serious about the project, and that's probably the best way to go forward with this Small Starts grant. So I just wanted to offer those comments that the JPA is not yet fully formed unless I haven't been informed, or maybe I saw Mr. Trost walk in. Did David Taylor accept the position on the JPA?
No, he did not accept the position. But the JPA still is an operable, fully.
Hold on.
Mr. Trost, can I have you come to the microphone so everyone can hear you? Thank you.
Good evening, Kirk Trost. So Mr. Taylor did not accept the position. However, the JPA is still a fully functioning JPA. It provides that there's an appointment of a fifth director, but until such time as a fifth director is appointed, the JPA has all of the powers the city's granted to it.
Exactly. So we have a little bit more work to do to fill out the JPA. But we will get there, and it's going to be very interesting to see where the risk assessment takes us. Anyway, I want to just thank staff because I know they've been working awfully hard on this project.
Okay. Mr. Miller.
We're mentioning risk, but that goes to constructing the streetcar. My concern was more with the risk of operating, and if regional transit is operating the system, how we're protected from a lawsuit, say somebody gets injured or whatever. We've got the deep pockets. Are they going to come after regional money? And I know the agreement talks with the JPA about their ability to be sued and be sued, but will the regional dollars end up paying for these lawsuits as opposed to the JPA indemnifying regional transit?
So the details on that have not been entirely worked out, but the assumption would be that all those costs are built into what we charge the JPA for our services in operating and maintaining the streetcar, just as should the JPA choose to contract with a private operator, they would need to do the same thing so that claims and so forth as a consequence of operations are covered. Certainly the intent of the parties is not to draw in regional money, not to have RT financially harmed. So that's the intent going in. We have not worked out the details, though, on how that actually looks, but I think that's how it would be structured.
I think we need to take a close look at that because as
Absolutely.
we've all seen, these claims can get huge.
Yep.
And leak into our operating finances as well.
Agreed.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Moore.
Yeah, so just real quickly, Mark, so mentioning operations there, but I think it's the understanding of the board that, as this project goes forward on the capital side, that, there's funding coming from a lot of different directions, but when we get into, if we get into cost overruns that are, who knows what would dictate that, but certainly the bidding climate today is tough. I think we all know that. So without really answering anything specific, what I'd be interested in hearing is just some detail on that. Where do we land on, again, minimizing the risk to the transit district related to, what could be some cost overruns based on, the existing budget. So if we can just get, maybe point us to the right direction when we have these revised documents at a future board meeting, I'd be interested in a little more detail on that.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Natoli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to kind of piggyback on a couple of the comments and questions been put forth, and I appreciate Director Harris kind of giving us some update as it relates to some of the conversations between the parties. I guess when you bring this back, one of the things that still, in my mind, has been alluded here to different degrees and different types of risk, but as it relates to the governance, are we satisfied as the district, and certainly Dr. Harris has been representative, would cover, I guess, that dual role if he were the director, both the city council member from the city of Sacramento and RT director, but are we, as it relates to risk, but also considerations of the views of this district, I heard you say that would require an affirmative vote for certain items under at least the proposed structure, again, recognizing this hasn't all been ironed out, but I guess I want to have ample confidence that as we enter into this and are, quote, the recipient of the grant and the operator under contract with the two cities, that the governance piece of that, because again, that's the part that this body would not see. And again, we're going to put faith and trust in our colleagues here, and I have no problem with that. That's very acceptable. But I want to know that as it relates to the structure of 5 members and the designation and the interests of this district, both short term in the construction or build and long term, that those are addressed. JPA agreements can be amended and so forth, but oftentimes they're done so after there's some problem that occurs. You can't think about everything in advance. But that's, again, when you bring us back in July or August, recognizing there's some work to do between the electeds, I guess I look to you, Mark, and Henry to, in your recommendation to delineate and make sure that's clearly understood for, certainly for this member anyway, to know that the governance is a satisfactory apportionment of risk as well as it is to decision-making and any other considerations that go into that. So,
okay, we will do that.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Ms. Budge?
Yeah. Meeting with Henry last week in just a routine meeting, he talked a little bit about his concerns about about this relationship, and I appreciate your detailed staff report, because I really apologize to Jeff. I have not been able to get away for the last couple of meetings, so I'm really not up on doing my duties in terms of being the alternate to this to the JPA. But given that basically regional transit is being hired by the two cities to run the system and to provide the maintenance and operation in the long run, then it occurred to me to wonder what would be the source of the two cities' funding for paying regional transit. We all know, the issues with public transportation agencies and fare box recovery, and so we assume that the two cities have a plan for coming up with the finances in order to actually really pay regional transit for the contracts. And there is a sentence here that seemed to cause some concern about being compensated for commercially reasonable costs, but there was no methodology established. So when we talk about risk, it seems as though the long-term risk from the maintenance and operation of the system is probably more is probably the larger issue. And so those are the kinds of things, that is why that risk assessment from the FTA seems to be so important. Get their take on how this will all shake out in the end. And then you all need to be satisfied that there's a source of income to either pay those commercially reasonable costs, or there's significant income to hire RT to run and manage this system.
Understood. And when we bring this back, we can lay out the financial plan. At the end of the day, there could be a scenario, though, where RT is not the initial contractor, that we can't come to commercial terms, in which case our role falls back to, grant oversight as the
Right.
subrecipient, and the JPA is free to contract with another operator. That's a possible outcome in the discussion.
And I understand that also creates concern for you all, because the FTA is going to hold regional transit responsible as the grant recipient.
For the first 5 years of operation.
And so if there really isn't any role, ultimately there isn't any role for RT in terms of the operation and then the maintenance, then that's kind of an odd position to be in, sort of in limbo in the middle, but not really tied to either side of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other questions? All right, so Mark, thank you. I know that a lot of work has gone into this with RT and the two cities, and I think everyone's looking at how to have a positive result on it, which is important. Risk and reward are the big words here, and I know that as you come back, and hopefully we'll get a pretty quick turnaround from FTA on their risk assessment, and that we can then embed those challenges into our next meeting, and hopefully we can get this done. My hope is by the end of July. And I know the city of Sacramento will be hearing this on July 3rd. I'm not sure about West Sac.
I understand they're scheduled for the 13th this week.
West Sac.
West Sac.
Great.
Yep.
Good. So they are ahead of us as usual, but they're more nimble than we are. So we'll get back to that as we go. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's move to item 17.
Moving on to reports, ideas, and questions from directors, communications.
Mr.
Item
Hume,
17.
You got anything on this one?
No, I actually wasn't able to make that paratransit meeting, so I trust the minutes are accurate.
All right, great report, thank you. Let's move to item 18, San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. Mr. Hume?
The minutes are accurate. I phoned in, and so that was
You're
it.
good. Okay, Mr. Barnbaum, do you want to comment on this one?
Yes, I was there in person, and Mr. Hume did phone in from Elk Grove. Thank you for that.
We believed him. We did.
Oh, yeah. No, and participation by Director Hume was very involved in the meeting, even by telephone. So thank you for your immense participation in that. One takeaway, Chair Pro Tem and members of the board, and it kind of ties into the California Transit Association's legislative reception that was held just prior to this board meeting. That was held at the bank, J and 7th, and Henry and I had the opportunity at that reception to speak with the manager of regional initiatives, Dan Levitt. And it was a great conversation, which leads me to tell you that on Friday, July 27th, from 9 a.m. to noon, it was approved at this last meeting that the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors will hold their July 27th meeting in Sacramento. This is a great opportunity, Chair Pro Tem and members, not only to partake in person at a San Joaquin JPA meeting that will be in Sacramento on July 27th, again from 9 to noon, but it will enable to have a strong partnership become even stronger with potential new stations in Elk Grove, City College, Midtown, Old North Sacramento along Railroad Avenue, and a potential station in North Natomas off of Elkhorn Boulevard near Sorrento Road, potentially with a quick shuttle service meeting each train going to Sacramento International Airport. One other thing involved is that not only did the San Joaquin JPA get a TIRCP grant for these new stations and moving its rail alignment from the Fresno subdivision over to the Sacramento subdivision in order to add round trips to Sacramento, but another recipient of a grant was the Shasta Regional Transportation Agency, which will help the JPA in providing dedicated I-5 corridor service between downtown Sacramento and Red Bluff and Redding, with a stop also at Sacramento International Airport. So yes, I would like to invite everybody to the next JPA meeting on the 27th here in Sacramento and get some excitement for this. Thank you.
Mike, thank you as always. Appreciate it. That is item 18. We are now going to move to closed session. I do not believe there will be a report out on this. Is that correct? So there won't be a report out, so you all can go home. We will come back and adjourn the meeting when we're done. Thank you very much.